This video can literally change your life, especially if you've been to therapy for years or read many psychotherapeutic books or self-help books and you are still feeling stuck. This is the video for you. It would literally save me 20 years of my life if I had this video in the past. And the reason being is because there's one major flaw in psychotherapy. And this one major flaw is this. In all psychotherapy today, here's you and here's your disorder. That's why you come to therapy, because you are lower than your disorder. You're weaker than it and your disorder is stronger. But what all of modern day psychotherapy does is focus on this. All the focus is on your disorder and on managing its symptoms. Meaning, modern psychotherapy focuses on taking your symptoms from high to mild to low, and it tries to go all the way to zero, essentially making your disorder disappear. However, I believe this model is completely wrong. I tested it for 20 years of my life and it was still just managing symptoms. The new model of psychotherapy that I want to show you is focusing on you instead. And it's focusing on you going from here all the way to here, where you are stronger than your disorder. And because you're stronger now, your disorder can no longer really bully you. It can bully you when you're here. But once you're above it, once you're stronger than it, it can no longer really bully you anymore. Only someone who's stronger than you can bully you, not someone who's weaker. Now you may be like, well, so what's the big deal, man? Like, okay, so you don't focus on disorder, but you focus on yourself. What's the deal? Well, the deal is that by focusing on yourself slowly and slowly, you can get into what I call your ideal future self. Bam, right here. And what your disorder does is no longer your issue. Whether it's high, mild, or low, let it do its thing, whatever it wants to do. Why? Because if you focus on your disorder, it grows. Not only that, but by you always trying to manage symptoms, whenever they pop up again, which unfortunately, that's the major problem here, because most of the time they do, you are back in havoc. You're like, oh my God, it's here again. I learned all these techniques to manage it. And that's essentially the problem. The problem here is twofold. First, only 14 to 20% of people with OCD, for example, according to studies, fully recover. AKA, they reach point of having absolutely no disorder anymore. That's a very low number for this model to work. That's a very low number. So if we know that about 1/6 or 1/5 of people ever really get here, then why the hell should we focus in all our psychotherapy efforts today on lowering and managing the symptoms of our disorder with pills, techniques, whatever it is? What I propose in what I call transformative therapy is to take you and focus all the energy on you and on enlarging you and getting you all the way here through making your bed, cleaning your room, having an average job, well, getting a better job, building your body, working on your relationships, everything all the way up to here, which I call ideal future self, or IFS. Now, this is what I call, as I said, transformative therapy. And it's a therapy that's all about shifting this focus from here to here. That's what we got to do. Because the second problem here, apart from this, is that when you focus on your disorder, it's kind of boring. Psychotherapy becomes a drag. It stops being this amazing adventure, this awesome journey of your life. Like it literally, for me, it was the best journey of my life that led me to life of my dreams and changed me as a person. And it just starts to be this drag of, oh my God, let me get this out of the way so I can get back to my comfortable life while, and this is the main thing about the second problem, you're still here. You still stay the same. Why the hell would I want to manage my symptoms and go back to my comfortable life where I was before I got my disorders, by having zero symptoms, which is kind of like a medicine approach. That's what you would do with like, I don't know, with like, if you would have a cold or something, if I can get here. And life's all about getting here. That's why people buy, courses about success, and they listen to self-help gurus. They buy all these self-help books. It's a major industry, when in reality, 50% of people will go undiagnosed with some mental health disorder in their life, which literally means 1 out of 2 people will have mental health disorder at some point. And I'm telling you from my experience and with my clients that I work with, that this is the biggest reason for change in people ever. Because if I were here, which I would still be here in today's super comfortable modern day and age, even if I never got OCD when I was 7 years old, and I would be lying in my bed trying to wake up at 6 a.m., what's gonna get me up? What's even gonna get me up? Like, how the hell would I even go up? I wouldn't. I wouldn't care. If I didn't have my disorders, I wouldn't even care to get up from the bed that early. There would be no pressure on me. There would only be comfort. Yes, I would like to live my best life. Yes, I would like to get up earlier, but there would be no pressure on me to do so. And I know this because, like, while I had a really great personal transformation, so many people don't. So many of the people I grew up with don't, because they never got this. And if they did, like some of my childhood friends, they got some disorders, they went into this traditional psychotherapy model. They managed their symptoms somehow, usually with so-called relapses. When it goes back again, oh my God, it's here. After some time, but they stayed here. And what I'm gonna show you now is that I think that actually this is what psychotherapy will move to in the future. And this is what psychotherapy always originally was and should have been about. Why should psychotherapy be about this? Well, because etymologically, which is a science about where words come from, the word therapy comes from the word therapeia. And the word therapeia literally means healing. And the word healing has a root word that could be translated as, or pronunciated as hal or gal, and that is a word that etymologically stems from the word whole. Hal, whole, that's the root word. If you go on etymology online, I think it's like etymologyonline.com, and you put in the word therapy, because one day I wanted to, hey, where did this word come from? And you go deep, okay, so it comes from therapeia, that means healing. Healing comes from the word hal or gal. And what does this ancient word mean? It means whole. It means complete. It means complete, everything you could be, full potential. That's literally, etymologically, if you trace the word back to its ancient roots, the word therapy means become whole. So shouldn't the goal of therapy be to become whole instead of to just manage the symptoms of your disorder, trying to get them down? You answer, but I answer that for myself. And I believe this model makes so much more sense. And well, it healed me after this model was really unsuccessful with me personally. So this is something that I believe is the goal. And especially, if we focus on what is wholeness, well, wholeness has a symbol of circle. Since ancient times, this has been a symbol for wholeness. And it essentially means everything is contained. There's nothing left out. There are no breaks, no scatterings, not like this, or, it's all just whole. It's all complete. Everything's in it. So I believe the goal of therapy is exactly that. Just like we draw before, it's to get to what I sometimes call ideal future self, or what I call the strongest version of yourself. And if you can get to it, to the strongest, most free and best version of yourself possible, the disorders not only lose their power on you, but actually, because you use them to get here, because just like I said with the example with waking up early, you know, if I never had those, I wouldn't care about getting here. I wouldn't care to get into my best self. Only because I had those, and I had the luck of having a therapist in the past who told me, hey, Pavel, if you want to get better, you know, you got to build some psychological resilience. You got to get better as a human being. And I did, but I didn't want to. Why did I get better? Because my OCD was so bad. My anxiety was so bad. My depression was so bad. They were 10 out of 10. They were killing me inside. I was suffering so much that the suffering was like an extra push that pushed me to do all these things that everyone wants to do. And that's why they read self-help books, books about motivation, but almost no one does them. And I got all of them thanks to my disorders. So then upon looking back at these disorders, in the rear mirror, you know, I was in a car in my awesome life now. In the rear mirror, I was like, oh my God, thank you. Like, I was like, hey, it's not like the disorders were good. No, no, no. They were my enemy. But thanks to having them as my enemy, I nailed it in life. Like when I wrote my book in Czech, like I would never write the book. I always wanted to. But without these guys, I wouldn't do it. They were what gave me that extra, and then it gets you here. So in the rear mirror, now you're like, hey guys, you know, like these disorders, if it wasn't for them, I'm not where I would be in life, not even by 10%. And so now they don't actually piss you off anymore so much. Now it actually doesn't matter as much if they're on 10 out of 10, 5 out of 10, 3 or 0. And guess what happens usually? They get here. That's what happened with me. I couldn't get here to the traditional model for 20 years. Since I was 7 years old, I was diagnosed, but I got here through this new model. And funny enough, this is something that has been in psychotherapy all the way along since the beginning. Not just etymologically, but there were also therapists who pointed to this and spoke about this. And I believe this is going to be the only possible future of psychotherapy in upcoming years. So essentially, among some people who spoke about this before was very known Carl Gustav Jung. And he had a concept that he called individuation, which actually meant to become a fully psychologically adult individual. And what he meant by that, individualization, what he meant by that was that you become whole. That's how he described it. He said, well, you become psychologically whole. Before you had different parts that were not integrated within your psyche, that were against each other or whatever, now you integrate them all. I don't fully agree with his model for this, but he was already noting at this thing. Another guy who is the little father of cognitive behavioral therapy, aka CBT, which is the most treatment efficient therapy in the world nowadays, Albert Ellis, he spoke also about very interesting thing. He said that there are two types of recovery in psychotherapy. You can either recover kind of normally, where, you know, your symptoms reduce and you leave therapy. Or he said that there's a different type of recovery, which he recommends to people more because this is the true healing. And he said it's what he called philosophical change. And philosophical change, in his book, meant that the whole person is now changed. It's a new man or a new woman, and they're now a completely different person. They're changed in their depth, in their core. They have a new glasses now, new lens through which they view not only themselves and others, but their entire life. So as we can see, these notions about this second model that I proposed have been in psychotherapy for a long time. And essentially, although they're not the mainstream now, I believe that there are hints of it throughout the whole history of psychotherapy. Even the word psyche, literally in ancient text, is attributed with butterfly wings. And butterfly, what's a butterfly? Well, this ancient Greek word, in butterfly wings, in these ancient stories, it's literally, it's a cocoon at first. That's what butterfly is. And then it becomes this beautiful creature, this beautiful butterfly. Again, it's like a small hint in psychotherapy that, hey, healing can actually go really deep. And then when we take a look at all the shamans of different tribes, at all the holy men in, Indian tribes and stuff like that, Native Americans, if we take a look at, religion, at philosophers, all these things that brought the foundation for modern day psychotherapy, they all cared about this. They never cared about symptom management and then going back to your comfortable life. They were all about transformation, meaning you start somewhere, you get your problem, but thanks to that problem, you completely change yourself. It becomes your biggest teacher. Although unknowingly, because I don't believe disorders are like nice to you. I believe they want to destroy you, but if you don't let yourself be destroyed, you can become stronger. Just like in Rocky when he had his rivals, and thanks to that he became even stronger than ever before. So the ball is now in your court, and it is all up to you. If you will decide to be like this sticky man who uses Ozempic, I don't even know if it's a needle or if it's a pill, in order to not be obese. And that's literally like the current model of psychotherapy. Here's obesity, and you're trying to lower it by any means possible, as fast as possible, so this damn problem of obesity is gone, and woo, there you are. But you have a different choice now. You have a choice now of building your muscles and going from here, where maybe you struggled with obesity, it got the best out of you every single time. Every single time there was a food, you took it. And but you said, oh my God, I'm starting here. I have it worse than someone who's like naturally here, who's like naturally kind of athletic. I have it even worse. I'm starting here, but damn, I'm gonna beat this thing. And in order to beat it, that's the way for me. I gotta go to the gym. I gotta eat better. I gotta drink better. I gotta have some education about minerals and micronutrients, etc. All the way up to here. And now you beat this thing. This thing, cannot do anything to you anymore. It's only something that's stronger than you can bully you. Now, it cannot bully you. It's weaker than you. Meanwhile, you had this great adventure, and I believe life is all about this, all about adventure and changing yourself. That's where I felt the most freedom, and that's what I live for. I think life wouldn't have a meaning otherwise for me if it was just comfort and everything was super easy. I love this thing. And you transform yourself. You can pat yourself on the back. You can be proud of yourself. You found a new hobby and you did it all yourself. You're literally living a movie. It's just like in the movies where you're watching the main character and you're so proud of them and what happened with them, and you feel all this meaning, all this adventure, and you love your life. And I take this any time of the day. Nothing against Ozempic. I know people who take it, they sometimes work out too, and there can be some bad health conditions that make it impossible for you maybe to do the other way. I don't know. But I take this every day of the week, not instead of the first thing. And you got to realize that physical health is just like mental health. It's the same thing. And health, hal, gal, is also the word, healing. Remember etymology? It means wholeness, becoming everything you could be possibly in that way. It's the same, whether it's mental or physical. What I showed here is completely goes for therapy as well. And for any kind of self-help, because I believe self-help is just, glorified techniques from psychotherapy, where people who study self-help should really go to psychotherapy, in my humble opinion. I know this video is very long by now, but I'll show you, and you can skip this, but I'll show you homework. In psychotherapy, there's this idea that whatever you discuss in the session, you can then give to the client as a homework so they can practice it at home and truly integrate it into their life. So let's start with this homework. I want you to imagine a Roman or Greek temple that's standing on pillars. The roof of that temple, this is all your disorders. Whatever can be there. Maybe you have trauma. Maybe it's not PTSD directly, but maybe you have some trauma. Maybe you have some anxiety, social anxiety, performance anxiety. Everyone has something. But some people, maybe they're like subclinical, which is they wouldn't pass for mental health diagnosis. They have just some minor mental health problems. They may need just 2 pillars. They have 2 pillars, and because they have small roof, the pillars are going to support it. They're going to support that weight, and the temple is not going to crumble. This temple is your mental health. And if you want to have it great, you need your pillars. You need to find your pillars for mental health, and you need to have as much of them as you need for your given weight of your given roof. So for someone like me, I had OCD, social anxiety, ADHD, I think I have autism, I had depression. My roof is gigantic. So I need a lot of pillars. And there are 8 of them that I found, and they help not just me, but my clients too. And they're, in my mind, absolutely revolutionary because they can be applied to any disorder. And any disorder that you apply them to, if you can get them all to at least 7 out of 10, I believe your disorder, no matter what it is, will drop to 0 to 3 out of 10, meaning it will be between 0 to maybe it will be 1, 2, or 3 constantly. So you're only gonna get those stronger and you'll get here. Not that this would be so important, but this is what people want to see. So let's start with the pillars. The first pillar is insight, and it's the most important pillar because, as the saying goes, if you don't know you have a problem, you cannot fix the problem. Now, as I said, 50% of global population goes undiagnosed, although they would pass for some mental health disorder. The rest of them maybe wouldn't pass, but they still have some mental health trouble, as everyone does. So you need to have an insight. Insight literally means that, someone may go undiagnosed for years, they may think they're lazy, they're procrastinating, they're stupid, when in fact they just have ADHD, for example. Or like my friend who thinks he's gay, he just found out he probably has homosexual OCD, and he had crazy anxiety about possibly being gay, and now he found it's probably homosexual OCD. If you don't have insight, which is usually in the form of diagnosis or at least reading about some mental health stuff like how to heal trauma, and then going to books about that theme and joining forums about it, if you don't have that, if you don't have insight, there's no building your mental health. You need to know your enemy. You need to know what you're contending with. You need to know that roof. And before you know it, how can you work on it? So you need insight. And insight, if you would have 0 out of 10 insight, you don't even know what mental health issues you have. You probably blame other people. You don't even know that maybe you have like obsessive compulsive personality disorder, which is a disorder where you can blame others. You just think, oh, it's their fault. There's no healing. So that would be 0 out of 10. 10 out of 10 insight would be not believing in any of the lies that your disorders tell you. Because guess what? Every disorder is some form of lie. Like with anorexia, hey, once you get to that weight, we will help you to get there. then we will stop with this. Then we will stop counting calories. But once you get there, you will have ideal weight. And then of course, it's like, well, this is not ideal now. We need to lose even more weight. You know this. It's always some form of lie. 10 out of 10 insight would be, you don't believe any of those lies anymore. Each of these insights, this will be your homework. You will rate them from 0 to 10. So for me, insight would be like 8. Now we go with another pillar, which is inner warrior. And inner warrior quite essentially means that whatever your disorder wants you to avoid, it's always something, or whatever it wants you to do, it's always something, you do the opposite. So ADHD wants you to avoid feelings of boredom, so you just learn to sit and be completely bored. ADHD wants you to avoid planning and having a to-do list or calendar, so that's what you learn. Or OCD may want you to avoid touching something, or it may want you to touch something if you have a different type of OCD, so you do the opposite. Oh, don't touch this, it may be contaminated. Oh, I touch it. So you lean into anxiety. If you're depressed, again, you do the opposite. Oh, just lay in your bed. No, I'm going to get up and I'm going to be active. This is inner warrior. It's essentially you start bullying your disorders instead of them bullying you. If you have strong inner warrior on 10 out of 10, your disorders get kind of afraid of you. They're kind of like, oh my God, what he's going to do again. Oh my God, what he's going to do. That's inner warrior. It's kind of like healthy anger that energizes you because you view those as enemies that are still in your life, and you're like, no, not anymore. I won't take this anymore. I will, work on this. Again, 0 out of 10 would be like you're completely lethargic, apathetic, and 10 out of 10 inner warrior would be they can no longer bully you. Then you have life. Life pillar is really interesting because it essentially says how much do you love your life. 10 out of 10, 0 out of 10. I think you should get to 10 if you have a lot of disorders, because you cannot just have average life if you have disorders. If you have 5 out of 10 life, I kind of like my job, I kind of like my relationships, and you get OCD now, you think it's going to be 5 still? No, it's going to get to like -2. So you really got to build it as high as you can, especially with disorders, because you cannot afford to have an average life if you have mental health issues. You really should strive for having as awesome life as possible, even with these. If you can manage it, then you actually have this rear view moment where you're like, actually, I got here only because of them. Because this guy in the video told me to really start focusing on my life and living it to the fullest, which normal therapists never tell you. They just tell you, hey, lower your symptoms, take these pills, and pills can be life-saving, but it's like the mentality is always like, oh, just take this, and there's no change. There's no change of you. You're still the same. So, bam, life. And as I always say, hey, you could afford that before your disorder. Now, with mental health issues, you need to go to hear about it. You need to go to 10 out of 10 as much as possible. Pillar 4 is acceptance, or I rather like to call it allowance. And it's the only pillar that's not a skill, it's not a technique, it's not something that, it is actually kind of a skill, but it's not a technique. It's not something like in all these pillars, I could give you some techniques. But not here. This is more like a mindset and attitude where you just allow whatever your mental health problems give you to be there. You don't constantly try to change your mood. You don't try to change how you feel. You feel shitty, you're like, acceptance is essentially just like, I feel bad, you leave it there. You don't try to constantly apply mindfulness or some techniques or to constantly fight it or read more books about it to have an insight. Acceptance is just, hey, I learned all these other things. Now I'm going to learn just to be with it. Sometimes it's called sitting with anxiety. You just allow it to be there. And it's the opposite of inner warrior. And what I found out, some people like me, although I couldn't really work with it well before, have a very strong inner warrior, but they usually are super weak in acceptance, and vice versa. you know, so someone comes with super great acceptance but no inner warrior. You need to have both because mental health disorders are paradoxical, they're very complex. You also need a lot of complexity. And again, 50% of the world go undiagnosed. So you may think you don't have a mental health disorder, you likely may. And even if it's not a full disorder, everyone has mental health issues, which they should work on instead of constantly buying self-help books and success books. If you work on this, success is gonna come. You will live life on an easier mode, trust me. Way easier mode. Fifth pillar, flexibility. Flexibility, because flexibility is the shrugged shoulders. It's slightly different from acceptance because acceptance is not doing anything. It's just like, hey, just be here. But flexibility stems from the work of Albert Ellis, and it's all about different techniques that will teach your brain how to not be dogmatic. And not being dogmatic essentially means giving up your musts, shoulds, oughts, etc. Not just on yourself, but also the ones that you have about other people, the ones that you have about life. Flexibility is about giving all these up. And amongst all these are kind of researched. You know, you can find research that's tied to having a great insight about your OCD, for example, meaning that you recover better from OCD. But amongst all of these, flexibility is the #1 pillar that's most correlated with mental health. People who are flexible, so let's say they wish that they make a great presentation at work, but they don't insist on it. They're not like, I must make that presentation, otherwise I'm an idiot. They're like, yeah, I really wish I make a great presentation, I will work for it. But if it's not great, life goes on. People who are like that have best mental health. But it's not apathy. It's not like, oh, I don't care about presentation. They care, they wish it's great, but they don't insist on it. They're like, yeah, I will work for it. I wish it's great. If it's not though, I'm not an idiot. Life will not break down. Sixth pillar is called existentialism, and it's stemming from existentialist therapies and existentialist philosophies. Existentialism is a pillar that is all about seeing meaning in your life and in your suffering mainly. So this is what the rear moment mirror, whatever it was, is, because existentialism means that you find meaning in having disorders. Lack of existentialism, when you have it on 0 out of 10, is called victim mode, where you're like, oh my God, why did I have to get this? Poor me, others don't have OCD, they can just enjoy their life, and now I got OCD, now I have panic attacks. Existentialism means you find some meaning in that suffering, and that essentially means it starts to make sense. In the greater story of your life, it starts to be integrated in it. And when you look at it, you're like, huh, okay, this should have happened, actually. You know, it's part of my story now. Whatever you can do to get there. I really recommend Viktor Frankl or Stoicism or religion. These three are excellent for waking up existentialism in you. Seventh pillar, and all these 6 pillars are for mental health. These last 2 pillars are for spiritual health, which I believe is super important because therapy is here for 1800 something. Wilhelm Wundt in Europe created psychology, and Americans say that he didn't create it, that William James, who was American professor, created it, so we're kind of fighting with them. But that's some, I don't know, 100, 200 years. But then psychotherapy stems from Sigmund Freud. But even before that, before psychology and psychotherapy, we had religion and philosophy. And they cared about these 2 pillars that I'm going to show you now more than about anything else. And once I added these 2 pillars, my mental health skyrocketed. This was even stronger. It was like on steroids. And already, like most people, if you just get one, like you're in 99 percentile, like you're further ahead than 99% of people in the world with their mental health. I truly believe this. If you just master one of these pillars to like 7 out of 10 or more. But these 2, it's a whole another level. There's being and there's character growth or morality. I'm just going to put in character. Being is all about not always needing some stimulation, which is kind of like a superpower today. When people are constantly stimulated on their phones, always needing something, if you can just be, which you can find in any religion, Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, it's everywhere, you will appreciate everything 10 times more. You will be more like a kid that had unstimulated brain, a brain that didn't need constant stimulation, and that could just travel with their grandma on a bus, for example, and be like, hey, this is super cool, I love this, and enjoy it. You know, even if nothing great was happening, nothing super stimulating, nothing big, no movie, no TV series, a little kid can enjoy moments way more. And I believe the reason is because we build tolerance to stimulation. Just like with porn or alcohol, you know, when you watch porn, people start with mild porn, but then they build tolerance. It's not enough for their brain anymore. They want more. So they start watching some crazy stuff. Or the same with alcohol. You know, people may start with wine, maybe like a bit of wine, and then they need to increase amount and intensity. So they may just start drinking vodka or absinthe and in bigger and bigger numbers. That's what's called tolerance in psychotherapy. You build tolerance, and you build tolerance to any kind of stimuli like that. If you're constantly stimulating your brain through mobile phone or whatever, and you never just are, you always are thinking or feeling or doing something, but you never just are, you're gonna build tolerance to simple moments of life. You will stop enjoying life. And frankly, this is what life is all about, isn't it? To enjoy all of this. And, you know, so while you build all these, learn to just be. Learn to just sit, do nothing. Don't even call it meditation, that's doing again. Learn to just be. Be non-stimulated, be bored. You will reset your brain. Huge. This helped me so much. And the last one, the last pillar that I want you to work on to have this great temple that's supporting your roof, and essentially that temple means mental health. All this is mental health, is character or morality. Virtues and vices, you know, getting away from your vices, maybe it's smoking for you, whatever it is for you that you feel you shouldn't be doing, and working on your virtues. And virtues are, hey, being a good person, having courage, having, you know, temperance, which literally means not always indulging in stuff. Character is what was always present, and it should be present in psychotherapy, but it's not. The only person who talked about it was Viktor Frankl, when he said that when you're depressed, for example, what is one of his best therapeutic techniques in his therapy, which is called logotherapy, is to focus on other people and their problems. Because by that, you shift focus from you and, oh my God, poor me, I have depression, to someone else and their problems, and you try to help them with that. And he said that it will teach your brain, relearn it, to stop focusing on your depression. And the other person who talked about it, only two people that I know of in whole psychotherapy pretty much, is Jeffrey A. Kotler, who's called the conscience of psychotherapy, the conscience of our field. The conscience because his life work is studying psychotherapy and what this field is even about. And he's the godfather of all beginning therapists because he helps them, especially with his book called On Being a Therapist, which is like a Bible for starting therapists. And he says no one can have really good mental health unless they're moral, unless they're, in other words, unless they're good people. So you should focus on this, my friend, too, because you won't find this in modern day therapy. You certainly won't find this apart from mindfulness-based stress reduction and mindfulness-based cognitive behavioral therapies. Existentialism, you gotta find an existential therapy, but hey, it's gotta be like MMA from now on, guys. You know, before there was boxing, there was judo, there was sumo, then MMA came, and they realized, hey, we gotta combine it all. That's what we gotta do, and we are doing that in psychotherapy and cognitive behavioral therapy somehow, but this is even better. And we gotta switch the model from this to that, and it sounds simple, but once you do it, Your whole life is going to change. Your goal should be not to not have your disorder, but to be the best version of yourself. And you're going to see how it's going to change drastically. And how to do that, how to be the best version of yourself, focus on these. Everything else is going to fall into place. I promise you that. Success, money, you will play life on easy mode. Easier, because life will never be easy. But this, if you focus on those, everything you seek in self-help books, whatever habits, whatever this, that, whatever books you have, you're going to have it better than people who read these books or make these seminars. Why? Because you had mental health disorder. Literally. Like, you have so much added pressure on you to build something in your life, to transform yourself, that people cannot dream of that. It's like Harry when he had Voldemort, or Frodo when he had Sauron. While other people who don't have Sauron, they just stay in Hobbiton. They just like, yeah, I'm a hobbit, let's chill out, let's be in my comfort zone. They never get there. So I hope you guys like this video. I tried for a longer format here. Build this, rate this from 0 to 10, and then start looking for techniques, start looking for ways to build this, and start with the smallest one. So maybe if your inner warrior is smallest, maybe it's just 1 out of 10, start working on it. You know, read about, for example, if you have OCD, read about ERP therapy, which is about how to go against what OCD tells you, etc. So anyway, guys, I hope you like this video. By the way, one more person that talked about it is Carl Gustav Jung. But at the same time, he cheated on his wife and claimed that it's for his psychological growth. So, come on, man. I'm counting him out. But other than that, you don't really find this in psychotherapy, this 8 pillar of character. So anyway, guys, if you like this video, click on thumbs up, give me a subscribe, and leave me a comment down below about what you think about all this and if it makes sense to you. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. And have a good one, and stay tuned, and peace.